What's up guys, it's Planet Machine here. One of my most popular videos on my channel is actually this lightsaber work in progress animation. You guys seem to enjoy the style of it. A lot of you were asking for tutorials on it, and I've got a few tips and tricks that I've learned since then that I can show you. So as of right now I have this lightsaber fight going on, which is kind of a sequel, or I guess since the other one was a work in progress, this one would be a complete version. For right now, I'll show you how to do some of these Star Wars effects for you that know Blender enough and want to make some Star Wars animations. It's pretty easy. So, if you're starting out with a Star Wars animation, you're going to need some Star Wars characters, right? I decided to go simple and just make a set of default characters. I used this solid snake model for like everything. I used it for a remote. I've used it for a lot of test projects. It's just a model that works great. I like the rig on it. It's simple. You can use what you want though. I found it nice to be able to use him as a faceless character. Put a few like hoods and capes on him and whatnot. And this mask I might put on him. That's the first step. Second one would probably be to get like some lightsaber stuff. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. The work in progress video was kind of primitive, so I did something like this. Basically, I made my own custom sabers. I don't have this file anymore, I wish I did. But I made my custom sabers, like, I'll just do this kind of quick. Say this is your lightsaber handle, right? Just make it black for now. And this would be our blade. If you put the origin point at the bottom, then when you size it, it'll actually just shrink down like that. So you can do retractable and untractable. What? Huh? Activation? Yeah. It doesn't look like a lightsaber, so what we'll do is we'll add a material. You can click on this, and you want emission. You can also hit E for really quick stuff. And this is what your node layout will look like. It's probably the simplest way you can make a lightsaber shader. You can just change this, so if we want blue, I'll just go about right there and just turn that strength up until you got what you want. So you can parent this by hitting Control P to the hilt, and there you go, you got your lightsaber, right? So let's say you animate your lightsaber, right? We put a keyframe there, and then about 20 frames later he swings his lightsaber that way, right? Well, if you look at it, there's no motion blur. And if we were to render this out with motion blur, it probably looked kind of weird. I tend not to mess with the motion blur too much on these simpler animations. But there's two ways you can do this. The way I did it in the work in progress short was basically I had another mesh like this. And basically if we grab some of these vertices up here, just drag this out, make it look like that, right? Our camera would be positioned somewhere around here. You know, imagine the dude is going to take a swing here, and well, he goes to swing, right? Oh, this needs to be unparented, I'm sorry. He goes to swing, right? There's no motion blur. Let's go ahead and make this somewhat quicker, because nobody swings a lightsaber like that. Alright, got a quick lightsaber movement, yeah. Essentially, what we'd want to do is just hide this for now. Put a keyframe so that we have it out of frame. And as soon as the lightsaber kind of gets to the point where you want the motion blur, you just come up here, you kind of add it, resize it how you want it, like so. We actually need to move this to where it's like that. And then I usually do about 2 keyframes worth of motion blur. If you just rotate this towards the camera, since the camera can't really see whether the emission is facing a certain way, like to shorten the blur, all I did was rotate it towards the camera. You can see it's just becoming flatter, and you can't tell. Like with other stuff you could tell, but with the emission it's just the same. So we'll do that, and then we we can just duplicate the last keyframe where it's out of view. So now you got your motion blur. It's a very primitive way of doing stuff. I'll turn this off so you can see it. But it works. It's easy. It's all manual. Depending on how long your animation is, you'll have to do this for every swing. So I did do this method a lot for my animation. You can see here if I play it in slow motion, he's got that motion blur effect. You can even see it here. It's flat here when it's not supposed to be. Now, option 2 is an add-on. Now, I highly recommend doing this because the manual way, it is free. You know, it's easy to do. This, however, does it all for you. This is automatic. This is called Lightsabers by Divinia. $5, totally worth it. You can hit new saber. You can name it. I'll just name it Test. And there it is. It's black. It's the dark saber. So you've got a few options here. You got the trail, which you'll see here in a minute, but you can adjust the length of it, the thickness of the blade, the tip, whether it's round or tapered. You also can parent it here, but I found that just parenting it normally works better than here. And then your camera options. You got a few options here we'll get to. Alright, so if we take this red lightsaber, right, and we just put 2 keyframes like we did before, you can see there's no motion blur. One of the reasons is because of the camera option. So basically you can set the camera to be a factor in the blurring. So if your camera is looking at the lightsaber, it's going to blur based off of the camera's position. I found that turning this off, just leaving it blank, is the better option because it just blurs on its own movement. You can see it's doing it now. So all we had to do is animate it, and it automatically calculates where the blur should be based on the way it's moving. So that is an awesome feature. That's great. Okay, another tip for anybody who uses the EV engine instead of the cycles is just to disconnect this, and then you have your 2 nodes you can play with here for your lightsaber effect. Okay, so you got your characters, you got your lightsabers, you know how to animate the blur on them. Now, when you're making your fight, there's going to be something else that's missing. So, I was animating this, I had them hit lightsabers together, and it didn't feel right. Well, I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like and see if you can tell what I'm talking about. A good example of what I'm talking about is when lightsabers clash, they have this very blinding effect that almost blinds the entire frame. I'll go ahead and slow this down even more. This is a cinematic from the Old Republic. You can see this bright orange glow comes from both lightsabers when they connect. Even though these lightsabers are far away, you can still see that this giant flare kind of almost blinds the entire camera. You can see it's just kind of based on, I guess, how hard they hit. To get this effect, I used another simple method similar to the first way of doing lightsaber blur, was to basically use a mesh with a mission on it. If you can't tell, a mission is like my favorite thing, to create this like kind of explosion effect. So all it is it's 2 frames. One is a small effect, kind of the start of the explosion, and then it just gets bigger on the second frame and disappears. I'm going to do some experimentation with some more effects, and hopefully come back with some more tips for you guys. If you guys want a second one, let me know in the comments. I hope this answered some of your questions about the lightsaber fight animation. If you guys have any questions or comments, just leave one down below and I'll be sure to answer it. I'm gonna go now. Goodbye.